Hey everybody, welcome back to Brainpower, episode 5. I'm your host, Bowen. This is our second video episode and the first solo video episode that I'm doing. Still working out some kinks as far as, where I'm going to be recording, what I'm going to be using, doing a little bit of bouncing around in kind of a dungeon today that is a little bit Morpheus themed. I kind of look like a ghost, but we're going to have some fun with it. Great show for you today. I have Morpheus news, I have Venice news, I have general DAI news, and also brain power specific news. Let's dive into it.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You're listening to Brainpower.
Kicking it off right away with the Morpheus news, we have a new Morpheus feedback hub for the community where community members can go in and leave feedback on just stuff in the Morpheus community. So other contributors can see your feedback. Maybe someone will work on, updating or designing or building out the thing that you made a suggestion for. The website to access this is on morpheus.featurebase.app. I will put the link to this in the show notes as well as the YouTube description so you can check that out. Currently, there are 7 good feedback postings, and so I'm just going to cover them a little bit just to give you an example of the type of things that people are recommending or requesting. The first one is an events calendar. There was a recommendation for an events calendar, and great news going forward with Week in Morpheus, which I helped to produce. We are going to include an events calendar. So these will be decentralized AI-focused events in general, as well as Morpheus events specifically, where people from the community are going to be at those events. Now, technically, any event can be a Morpheus community event because all that requires is somebody who wants to be part of the Morpheus community deciding to take that upon themselves to host an event. I actually hosted the first ever event in Chicago. So the event calendar, though, excellent suggestion that will be included on the Week in Morpheus update going forward as we kind of fall into a more baseline standard format for that. Recently, it's been covering a ton of articles written by David Johnston. Those articles are fantastic, and we wanted to make sure rather, that those got out and distributed to our whole community. But we do see the request for the event calendar, and that is something that I am paying attention to. The next one was a request for Morpheus for Dummies content. Hi, it's me, your Morpheus for Dummies guy. No, all jokes aside, this is a great recommendation. Basically, additional content for people to consume to really just understand Morpheus as a project better, as well as the ecosystem and how they can kind of plug themselves into it. As you know from listening to this show, there's a lot of different ways that can be accomplished, and it really depends on what your goal is. Like, what's the thing that you want to build or do, and then how can you plug that into the Morpheus ecosystem? Really, the possibilities are endless, honestly, for that. Another resource I would point you to is the Morpheus Intern YouTube page, I believe it is, with a lot of great content from a community member named Luke. Shout out to Luke. He makes excellent content. I saw that he had replied to the recommendation as well for more Morpheus for Dummies content. So that is in the works. And if you are somebody listening to this and you want to make content around Morpheus, definitely jump in and do that. It is welcome. Spreading the word about what we're building here and what we're building towards as a community and as an ecosystem is always a positive thing. Another recommendation on there was a request for new Morpheus bridges. Great suggestion. We have a good one right now. Check out morlord.com, M-O-R, Lord, L-O-R-D.com. There is a transfer feature that works extremely well. Shout out Ryan Condren on that one, a community member from Lumerin. Moving forward, another one to solve the Ethereum high gas fee problem. Man, I wish we had the solution for this. No, absolutely. I think really what this suggestion was getting at was doing further integration with other chains so that you're not only interacting with Morpheus on Ethereum. Now, most of the liquidity currently for the Mor token exists on Base and Arbitrum, which both have extremely cheap gas fees, at least in a historical context for what gas fees cost. So definitely check that out. I know that there are people working on a Solana integration. There was mention in the feedback request hub for a wire network integration, which would be awesome. And actually, speaking of which, I will talk about this a little bit later, but there's an event coming up as a sideliner to ETH Denver that is also being co-hosted by Wire Network. So definitely some opportunities there for the communities to come together and discuss this. Last one from the feedback board was a request for a more detailed builder dashboard. This is also in the works. Builder rewards just went live recently. Along with that came builder registration. There are currently 49 builder subnets registered on Base and 5 on Arbitrum. Some of those are registered on both, but let's just call it approximately 50. Coming up on 50 builders registered, and the information surrounding those registrations will definitely continue to come out, whether that be what is the reward that a specific builder is offering to their stakers, what does a builder intend on doing, what is it that they're actually building and propagating the Morpheus ecosystem, or using the Morpheus ecosystem to propagate the thing that they're doing. Little self-plug, there is a brainpower builder, and you should check it out and pay attention to it. There's some really great stuff coming there in the future down the pipeline. But yes, there is development in the works for a more robust dashboard for builders that will include all of that vital information that you want to know when you're making your allocation request to various builders as a More staker. That was definitely some of the biggest news over the past week. Really, the story here is still builders registering to the builder dashboard and us really seeing the early stages of that full flywheel effect of the Morpheus ecosystem and all the exciting things that are going to come along with that as it continues to develop. The other thing from a More token price perspective was basically the impact that the massive market sell-off had the other day. It honestly was an impressive rebound for Morpheus. If we look back on January 31st, the token was trading right around $30. Fast forward to February 2nd, which was the day that the massive sell-off really market-wide occurred. Morpheus had been approximately $24. It pulled back all the way to $15.93 around 9 p.m. that day. And by the evening the next day, was already back up over $26 and is now right around the $24 mark at the time of recording this. So if nothing else, great recovery for the Morpheus token. Honestly, for a lot of people, that just presented itself as an amazing opportunity to rebuy and lower their cost basis on their More token holdings as they look to then stake those going forward on different builder subnets to accumulate rewards, emissions, yield, whatever it is that the builder that they're supporting is offering to them in return for their More tokens so that they can use them as inference for their project. Let's move on to a little bit of different news, specifically regarding Venice. So some of the big news last week was the Venice airdrop. David Johnson and I discussed it in episode 4. Definitely check that out if you haven't watched it or listened to it yet. But last Friday, Venice hosted a Twitter Spaces with Eric Voorhees and Tiana from Venice, which answered a lot of questions that people were having. They also took questions from the community, which was a really awesome thing to see, by the way. This is something that really makes me excited about crypto, that kind of separates Web3 from Web2. When is the last time you've seen a Web2 tech company, or really any company, do something at the scale of what the Venice airdrop was approximately 2 weeks ago now, and then a week later go on a live Twitter Spaces to answer the questions for the community when things are a little bit bumpier than they wish they would have been, and really just face it head on, essentially? I didn't see them run away from any questions, so that was awesome. You really don't see that a whole lot, especially in Web 2, so seeing it in Web 3 is really cool, and really cool to see them lead the way. So just to cover a little bit of what was covered, though, on that call as a recap for you in case if you missed it or don't want to go back and listen to the whole thing. Ultimately, Venice.AI was created as a private alternative to ChatGPT and other systems like it, but without data being stored or collected by any third party. So really the idea here is if you're using Venice.AI, all of the information is only stored locally on your own device or browser, or not at all if you didn't want it to be. So it's really taken off. I believe they got to something like 400,000 users, individual unique users, prior to the token airdrop. I would imagine that since then, tons of people have probably checked it out. The token design, according to Eric Voorhees, was something that kind of began to kick off this past fall when they were thinking about the best way to do it. And I want to get into a little bit what the token is actually used for, because not only does this product exist, it has a lot of users, but the token actually has a use case as well. And so essentially, the token is used to tap into the VCU system, which stands for Venice Compute Units. Essentially, This system lets you stake your VVV tokens and in return receive a pro rata share of the available inference or compute within Venice that you can direct towards whatever you like, whether it be using yourself or APIing it somewhere else. And so in addition to that, you're also earning a yield in new issuance on VVV tokens. You can use these tokens, you can stake them, receive your pro rata share of inference within Venice, direct that API where you would like it to go, whether that be to yourself or maybe even sell it to a third party. Someone actually asked the question on the call, can I sell my inference if I don't plan on using it? And Eric's answer was basically, yeah, I mean, it's yours to do what you want with. So it does that, taps into the VCU system, but then also is actually providing yield in the form of new issuance, which right now, the yield opportunity is fantastic. So that's really cool. Not only was the token supporting a project, again, that already had utility, already had users, but the actual token itself has utility, which is personally something that I love to see out of crypto projects. It's also one of the reasons I was so excited about Morpheus and am so excited about Morpheus is because the entire ecosystem is built around basically a token with real utility that really does things. So, and I know I'm like being a little bit like silly about it, but it's true. Like that really matters that you're building and using technology that does something. We're not just playing around in the casino here. The casino exists and it's fun. And if you want to do that, that's awesome. And, gamble responsibly and accept the risks or whatever. But if you want to build something that's serious and really has some utility and genuinely has the potential to change the world, and this is not hyperbole, change the world, that's what we're working on here in Morpheus. That's the type of thing that Venice is building. So shout out Venice, shout out for building the product, continuing to do so, being currently the largest builder on Morpheus. The largest number of more tokens have been staked to Venice, so we will see what further announcements come from Venice with regard to that and what the rewards are going to be for Morpheus stakers. Early whispers seem to indicate it'll be some type of access to the pro user account or something like this. I do not work for Venice. I cannot confirm this. This is speculation, but we will see what they decide to do next. One thing I wanted to cover with regard to their airdrop, though, again, were just some questions that got asked and answered on this call. There was some concern over insider trading allegations as part of this airdrop. So this was something that was clarified directly by Eric and addressed directly by Eric. This is what he had to say about it. The Airdrome team had 2 members who ultimately insider traded the VVV pool that had been set up about 15 minutes prior to the public announcement. The 2 members were discovered by Airdrome, they were fired, and he, being Eric, was not sure if any further legal action is being taken, and ultimately that's up to Airdrome. So it sounds like some of those allegations that were flying around there might have been true, allegedly, but they did not come from within the Venice team. It was a third party through the listing pool, which was done on Airdrome, and it sounds like these people have been identified and are being dealt with. And they should be dealt with, in my opinion. That's a bad thing. Period. Bad thing. We all agree. We can all agree on this. Now, to the same point, with regard to the Venice team and selling, the VVV drop to the team was structured in the following way. Approximately 10% of the total supply went to the team and its contributors. 25% of that amount was unlocked right away. So approximately 2.5% of the total available supply, or total supply in general, was dropped to the Venice team with no restrictions. The other 75% of that 10% total allocation will unlock over a 2-year period with a 6-month cliff. So any tokens that were sold were part of the 2.5% total supply that were dropped to team members with no restrictions. And Eric pretty much put his foot down on this and said, hey, this was dropped to them with no restrictions. This was essentially dropped to team members who, without them, the project wouldn't be where it was today. And honestly, if you know anything about Eric and other things that he's worked on, this really shouldn't be surprising to you. From everything I do know about him, he's a free markets guy. And what type of free markets person would he be if he specifically allocates a portion of the tokens to members of the team with no restrictions, but then tries to put a restriction on what they want to do with it? And so is it, my preference that they sold? No, not necessarily. But also, who am I to tell somebody else what to do with their allocation of something that they built? Not to mention, the vast majority of it is locked for that 2-year period. So I'm not here to I feel like I'm white knighting for somebody that some people online are upset at. But let's really think about this here. And one thing that he said that I do agree with is, okay, so if you don't want people who've worked on the actual project to have any ability to sell, you just want people who didn't work on the project to have the ability to sell, and that's somehow better. I don't know. I think every airdrop is challenging. I don't know that I've seen anyone get airdrops exactly right, which is also why the Morpheus More 20 standard with the Lido staked ETH is an amazing mechanism for doing a fair launch. And honestly, I think other projects should adopt it. I think other projects will adopt it as they continue to add builder rewards and do things for the community that has staked more tokens to their subnet. But we will see going forward. Those were kind of the big questions that people had. Looking forward, Venice said that they're looking to develop out the character feature quite a bit further, and many other things are coming on the horizon. It's just the beginning for them. So let's see where it goes. Moving on to general DAI news. 2 projects I want to cover really quick. The first one being Akash. So big things happening over at Akash. For those who don't know, Akash, AKASH.network, is a decentralized compute super cloud network, basically, where individuals and or businesses and or protocols can post hardware resources for sale, and others can permissionlessly deploy those resources into whatever it is they want. Akash actually has a registered builder on within the Morpheus builder dashboard, so we'll look out for announcements on what their plans are for that. But if you wanted to launch an agent, you could use Akash hardware resources to tap into inference and connect to them through the Morpheus proxy routing system. And so that's pretty cool. The news that I wanted to cover for Akash, though, and give them a shout out for, was that Akash had a record-breaking Q4 2024 with network spend reaching $722,000, an increase of 144% quarter over quarter. So basically, from Q3 2024 to Q4 2024, they saw a 1.4x in total network spend, meaning how many people are renting GPU or really just compute in general, because it's not all GPUs, but people who are renting and deploying compute permissionlessly through the Akash network ecosystem, which is very cool. Shout out to you guys. That's awesome. Also, in Q4 2024, Akash hit an all-time high in total GPU capacity across that network spend. So they have more GPU capacity, more network spend. Both of those fundamentals of the project are up only right now, which is really great. Lastly, the network crossed 2 million in total network spend just 96 days after it crossed 1 million. So Akash has been around for a while. It's been around for a couple years. I believe it launched in 2021. I might be wrong about that, but I think it was 2021. And so it took up until October 2024, I believe it was October 30th, 2024, to cross $1 million in total network spend. So money spent to deploy on the network. And they doubled that. They hit 2 million just 96 days later. So again, awesome growth for them. Shout out to them. Lastly, the other project I wanted to highlight quickly, an ecosystem, is Bittensor. There's a lot of stuff going on over there. The DTAO or Dynamic Tau white paper was published recently on the Open Tensor Foundation's Twitter page, as well as bittensor.com. This is a massive upgrade that changes the incentive alignment across the entire network. I don't have all of the finest details on exactly how Dynamic Tau works. What I do know is that this is a massive upgrade to the way in which Tau staking works and how the incentives are aligned between and within specific subnets. So there's another good podcast called the Bittensor Guru. Check it out if you want to learn more about Bittensor specifically. On Bittensor as well, the Endgame conference is coming up for them. This is going to be in Austin, Texas on April 25th and through 27th, 2025. The tickets go on sale today, actually, February 6th. So check that out. And if you are planning on going to this or want to go in Austin in April for another reason, keep an eye out from some Morpheus community contributors. You might want to stick around Austin or come a little bit early before Endgame. So stick around for a Morpheus announcement along those lines. Okay, lastly, brainpower news. I just want to revisit one more time. The brainpower builder subnet is live on the Morpheus dashboard. So check it out. I have some really exciting announcements that are going to be coming down the pipeline with regard to the brainpower builder. some awesome things we're going to be working on, and benefits to stakers who decide to stake towards brainpower. So give that a look when you've got a second. Also, if you love reading and don't just love listening to content like brainpower, check out weekinmorpheus.com. That is week, W-E-E-K, in Morpheus.com for the Substack, published by myself and some other contributors within the community to stay up to date on all things related to the Morpheus network ecosystem. As always, thank you for checking out Brainpower. This has been episode 5. I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next one. Have a good week.
I'm trying to free your mind, but I can only show you the door. You're the one that has to walk through it.
You're listening to Brainpower.